The fluorescent lights of Las Vegas Medical Center buzzed overhead, a stark contrast to the warmth of the holiday season. My name is Rachel Martinez, and at 35 I was learning that family could cut deeper than any surgical scalpel. 2-year-old twins, Liam and Sophie, played quietly in the corner, their innocent giggles a sharp reminder of what I was fighting for. Valerie, a nurse with kind eyes, checked my vitals while my phone trembled in my hand. On the screen, my mother's face was a mask of indifference. "Don't you dare ask us to cancel our plans again," she yelled, her voice echoing through the sterile hospital room. The Elton John concert tickets were apparently more precious than her daughter's life. 6 months after losing my husband, Mark, to a car accident, I found myself alone again. Internal bleeding required emergency surgery, and my only request was simple. Could my parents watch their grandchildren while I underwent a potentially risky procedure? The answer was a resounding no. "We're retired now," my father had said earlier, his words slicing through my hope like a knife. "We deserve to enjoy our lives without your constant problems." Constant problems. Those words burned in my memory. Never mind that I'd been supporting them financially since their early retirement 3 years ago. Never mind that every single month I'd sent them $2,500 to cover their mortgage and expenses. Even after Mark's death, I continued, believing in the unbreakable bond of family. How foolish I had been. Tears silently traced paths down my cheeks. Valerie, sensing my pain, gently squeezed my shoulder. "My friend Olivia is a professional nanny who specializes in childhood trauma," she offered. "Let me call her for you." In that moment, with physical pain coursing through my body and emotional devastation crushing my spirit, I made a decision that would change everything. "Yes," I whispered. "Please call her." Olivia arrived like a guardian angel. Her presence was immediate and reassuring, the kind of calm professional who could read a room's emotional temperature in seconds. As she interacted with Liam and Sophie, I noticed how effortlessly she bridged their uncertainty, speaking in soft, engaging tones that made them feel safe. The hospital room, which had felt like a prison of vulnerability just hours before, began to transform. Olivia moved with purpose, arranging the twins' toys, speaking to them about their stuffed animals as if they were trusted confidants. I watched, still weak from surgery, marveling at how someone could step into chaos and create order. "Your mom needs rest," I heard her tell the children. "Let's make sure she gets better." Her words weren't just instructions. They were a promise of care I'd rarely experienced in my own family. During one of my more lucid moments, I began sorting through the emotional wreckage of my recent life. Mark's death had been a seismic event that had exposed the fragile foundations of my family relationships. My parents, who had always positioned themselves as loving caregivers, had revealed their true colors when I needed them most. The missed calls and text messages from my family started pouring in. Each notification was like a small earthquake, first confusion, then anger, then desperate pleas about mortgage payments. Not once did anyone ask about my surgery or the twins' well-being. My father's final message was a masterpiece of self-centeredness. "You can't just cut us off. We've planned a cruise, and the tickets are non-refundable." I realized then that I was done being the family's financial safety net. The $2,500 monthly support I'd been providing wasn't love. It was emotional blackmail. For years, I'd been trapped in a cycle of proving my worth through monetary contributions, believing that financial support equaled familial connection. Olivia noticed my tension. "Would you like some water?" she asked, sensing my internal struggle. Her simple act of kindness contrasted sharply with my parents' self-centered approach. When Jessica, my sister, finally reached out, her message was filled with genuine confusion. "Mom and Dad just told me you were having some minor procedure. What's going on?" In that moment, I saw an opportunity, not for revenge, but for truth. I decided to share the full story, hoping she might see our parents' manipulation for what it was. As I typed my response, Liam crawled onto the hospital bed, his small hand finding mine. Sophie followed, creating a protective cocoon around me. These two tiny humans represented everything I was fighting for: a chance at genuine love, unconditional support, a family built on mutual respect. The next chapter of our lives was about to begin, and for the first time, I was writing the script. Recovery wasn't just about healing physical wounds. It was about rebuilding an entire life from scattered pieces. 2 weeks after surgery, I was finding my rhythm. The incision site still protested with sharp reminders when I moved too quickly, but each day brought a little more strength. Olivia became more than just childcare. She was a lifeline. Each morning, she'd arrive with a calm efficiency that made the impossible seem manageable. My graphic design clients had been surprisingly understanding, allowing me to work remotely. Small mercies, I was learning, could feel like massive victories. Jessica's visits became an unexpected bright spot. The sister I'd grown up competing with was transforming before my eyes. She'd arrive with homemade meals, spending hours playing with the twins, asking genuine questions about my life. I never realized how much they manipulated our perception, she confessed one evening, watching Liam and Sophie build a precarious tower of blocks. They always made it seem like you were choosing to distance yourself from the family. Her words held a weight of revelation. Years of carefully constructed narratives were crumbling, revealing the truth underneath. The support group Valerie had connected me with became my unexpected sanctuary. These were people who understood loss not as a theoretical concept, but as a lived experience. Diana, a real estate agent who'd lost her husband to cancer, became particularly helpful. She saw potential in my situation where I saw only challenges. "You're not just surviving," she told me during one of our video calls. "You're creating something entirely new." Her words sparked something inside me. The memorial website I'd created for Mark had been more than just a tribute. It was a seed of a potential business. Members of the support group began commissioning similar sites, word spreading through their network. For the first time since becoming a widow, I felt a sense of purpose beyond mere survival. The side business wasn't just about income. It was about transforming grief into something meaningful, helping others navigate their own painful journeys. My parents' unexpected visit broke through my newfound peace like a storm. They arrived with a detailed spreadsheet of their financial troubles, demanding $144,000 to avoid foreclosure. The audacity was almost comical. "We need your help," my father explained, his usual authoritative tone now tinged with desperation. I invited them in, not out of obligation, but out of a curious desire to understand. The living room felt smaller with their presence, the twins watching curiously from their play area. "What about selling the boat?" I asked, my voice calm and measured. Their excuses tumbled out: market losses, retirement luxuries, a lifetime of poor financial decisions suddenly demanding rescue. But I was done being the rescue. Liam toddled up, holding his favorite toy truck, Sophie close behind. My parents' expressions softened, a performance of grandparental affection that rang hollow. "They don't really know you," I stated simply. "You've seen them maybe 3 times in their entire lives." The truth hung in the air, sharp and unforgiving. My father started to protest, but the words died on his lips. For the first time, I realized I no longer needed their approval or validation. I was building something entirely my own, a life defined by love, not obligation, a family created through choice, not blood. As they left, I felt something shift. It wasn't anger. It wasn't resentment. It was something closer to peace. 3 months after my surgery, the landscape of my life had transformed beyond recognition. The modest 3-bedroom house Diana helped me find became more than just a home. It was a sanctuary of healing and hope. The backyard, previously just a concept, now burst with life. Liam and Sophie discovered the magic of grass between their toes, of chasing butterflies, of creating worlds only children can imagine. Neighbors I'd never met before started showing up with welcoming gestures, casseroles, offers to help, genuine smiles that felt like warm embraces. My memorial website business was growing in ways I never anticipated. Each site I created became a bridge between grief and remembrance, a digital memorial that captured the essence of someone's life story. Clients weren't just purchasing a service, they were finding a way to honor their loved ones. Jessica's transformation continued to surprise me. What once was a relationship defined by competition had blossomed into genuine sisterhood. She'd spend weekends at our home, playing with the twins, helping me navigate the complex terrain of single parenthood. "I'm learning more about our family by understanding your perspective," she confessed during one of our long conversations. Mom and Dad's narrative was always so one-sided. The support group became my lifeline. These were people who understood that grief wasn't a linear journey, but a complex landscape with unexpected valleys and peaks. We shared stories, strategies, moments of raw vulnerability that felt like collective healing. Then came the letter, a handwritten note from my mother, something so rare it felt like finding a message in a bottle. Her words were different this time. No manipulation, no guilt, just a raw, honest apology that seemed to come from a place of genuine self-reflection. She wrote about watching me build a life without their help, about confronting painful truths about her own motherhood. "I was jealous of your independence," she had written. "I resented that you didn't need me in the ways I wanted to be needed." Jessica confirmed that something was indeed changing. My father had taken a part-time job at a local hardware store. They had sold most of their luxury items, living more modestly than ever before. A heart scare had apparently been a turning point, making my father face his mortality and the consequences of his actions. When we finally met at a quiet cafe near my new home, the transformation was stark. My father, once towering and authoritative, now seemed smaller. His confident swagger had been replaced by a humility I'd never witnessed before. "I've been a terrible father," he admitted, tears breaking through his typically stoic exterior, "and an even worse grandfather." My mother spoke about months of family therapy, Jessica's suggestion that they had initially resisted, but ultimately found transformative. They didn't ask for immediate forgiveness or rush to reconnect with the twins. Instead, they listened. I shared photos, talked about our new life. For the first time, they listened without trying to redirect the conversation, without making it about themselves. "Would it be possible," my father asked carefully, "to know our grandchildren someday?" My response was measured. "That depends on your actions, not your words. My children will only have relationships with people who genuinely respect their mother." Walking away from that meeting, I felt a complexity of emotions, not the crushing weight of past obligations, nor the burning resentment that had defined our relationship. Instead, there was a calm assurance, the feeling of a woman who had learned her worth, who had created boundaries, and would enforce them without apology. The journey wasn't about forgiveness or reconciliation. It was about transformation, mine, theirs, our entire family's understanding of love, respect, and what it truly means to support one another. A year had passed since that pivotal surgery, a year of unexpected growth, healing, and redefinition. My memorial website business had blossomed into something more than I could have imagined. Each project was a delicate tapestry of memory, a digital sanctuary where love transcended loss. Olivia remained a constant, her presence a testament to the family we'd chosen. The twins were thriving, Liam with his endless curiosity, Sophie with her infectious laugh that could light up the darkest rooms. They were becoming themselves, unburdened by the generational pain that had once defined our family's narrative. The support group had become more than just a weekly connection. We were a tribe of survivors, each of us rebuilding lives that had been shattered by unexpected loss. Diana continued to be a beacon of practical wisdom, helping me navigate everything from financial planning to navigating single parenthood. Jessica's relationship with the family continued to evolve. She had become a bridge, not just between me and our parents, but between the person she used to be and the woman she was becoming. Her visits were no longer laden with tension, but filled with genuine connection. "Mom's been reading books about generational trauma," she told me during one of our weekend coffee dates. "She's trying to understand how her own childhood shaped her parenting." The letter from my mother had been more than just an apology. It was the first crack in a wall of denial that had stood for decades. Our parents were slowly learning the difference between loving and controlling, between supporting and manipulating. My father's part-time job at the hardware store had become more than just a financial necessity. He seemed to find genuine satisfaction in the work, in connecting with people outside the narrow world he'd constructed for himself. The heart scare had been a wake-up call, forcing him to confront mortality and the relationships that truly matter. Supervised visits with the twins became a delicate dance of rebuilding trust. Short, carefully managed interactions where my parents learned to listen more than they spoke. No more demands, no more expectations, just the slow, patient work of earning relationship. The house Diana had helped me find had become more than just a home. It was a testament to resilience, to the ability to create something beautiful from the fragments of a broken life. The backyard where Liam and Sophie played was a canvas of hope, each day painting a new possibility. My memorial website business had attracted attention beyond our support group. A documentary filmmaker reached out, interested in exploring how technology could help people process grief. It was an unexpected opportunity, a chance to transform personal pain into something larger than myself. During one of our support group meetings, I realized something profound. Healing wasn't about erasing the past, it was about understanding it, about creating space for growth and transformation. Each of us carried stories of loss, but we were writing new chapters, refusing to be defined by our wounds. Jessica brought over old family photos one afternoon. We spread them across the living room floor, the twins crawling between memories, touching fragments of a history they were just beginning to understand. "Look how young Mom and Dad were," Jessica murmured, pointing to a faded image of our parents before children, before the weight of expectations had etched lines of disappointment on their faces. Liam pointed at a photo, his tiny finger tracing the outline of Mark. "Daddy?" he asked, looking up at me with eyes full of innocent curiosity. I pulled him close, sharing stories, ensuring that loss wouldn't become a void, but a connection. "He would have loved you so much," I whispered, meaning every word. The day was ending, soft light filtering through the windows, casting a warm glow on our chosen family. Olivia would be arriving soon. Sophie would need her afternoon snack, and the memorial website for a grieving family was waiting to be completed. Life, I had learned, was not about perfection. It was about connection, about creating meaning from pain, about choosing love, again and again. 2 years had passed since that critical moment in the Las Vegas Medical Center. 2 years of rebuilding, of understanding, of creating a life defined by choice rather than obligation. The memorial website business had grown beyond my wildest expectations. What started as a healing project had become a sanctuary for those navigating grief's complex landscape. Each website was more than a digital memorial. It was a bridge between memory and hope, a way of telling stories that refused to be forgotten. Liam and Sophie were growing into themselves, their personalities blooming like wildflowers. Liam inherited Mark's curious spirit, always taking things apart to understand how they worked. Sophie carried a resilience that took my breath away, a quiet strength that seemed to whisper of all we had survived. Our relationship with my parents continued its delicate reconstruction. Monthly supervised visits had gradually evolved into something more genuine. They were learning to be grandparents, not through control, but through listening and love. "We missed so much," my mother said during one visit, watching Sophie carefully stack blocks. Her voice carried a weight of genuine regret. My father had changed the most. The hardware store job had become more than just a way to make ends meet. He'd found a sense of purpose in helping people, in solving practical problems. The man who once measured success by luxury purchases now found joy in simple connections. Jessica remained our unexpected ally. She had become not just a sister, but a bridge between our past and our present. Her commitment to understanding our family's complex dynamics had led her to study family therapy, a path of healing that seemed almost poetic. The support group that had been my lifeline continued to be a source of strength. We'd watched each other transform, from people defined by loss to individuals creating powerful new narratives. Diana had become more than a friend. She was family, the kind you choose with your heart. Olivia remained a constant, her presence a testament to the family we'd created. She wasn't just childcare, she was part of our story, a chosen family member who had seen us through our most vulnerable moments. One quiet afternoon, sorting through old photos with Jessica, we discovered something unexpected. A collection of letters Mark had written, never sent, messages of love, of hope, of dreams for our family. Tears came easily, but they weren't just tears of grief. They were tears of connection, of understanding how love continues beyond physical presence. "He would have been so proud of you," Jessica whispered, her hand finding mine. The memorial website business had become more than just a career. It was a mission, a way of helping others transform their grief into something meaningful. Clients weren't just customers. They were fellow travelers on a journey of healing. My parents' journey of transformation continued. They downsized, sold unnecessary luxuries, and were learning to live within their means. The monthly therapy sessions had done more than just heal old wounds. They'd taught them the difference between loving and controlling. "We're learning," my father had said during our last visit. "Learning to be the grandparents we should have been from the start." As the sun set, casting golden light across our living room, I watched Liam and Sophie play. They knew their story, not just the painful parts, but the parts about resilience, about choosing love, about creating family beyond blood. Mark's memory lived in their laughter, in their curiosity, in their ability to find joy. The memorial websites I created were a testament to that, stories that refused to be forgotten, memories that continued to breathe. I thought about the woman I was 2 years ago, scared, broken, feeling utterly alone. The journey hadn't been easy, but standing here surrounded by the family I'd chosen, the life I'd rebuilt, I realized something profound. Healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about understanding it, learning from it, and then creating something beautiful despite it. The twins looked up, their eyes bright, with the kind of hope that knows no boundaries. And I knew, without a doubt, that we would be okay. Story 2. What I was seeing was unbelievable. My chest constricted as I gazed at my phone's screen, which showed my mother sitting at our family dinner table with a glass of wine in her hand. She was mocked at, utterly oblivious that she was being broadcast on the internet. "Oh, please." My mother rolled her eyes theatrically and sneered. "My daughter believes she is successful because she sells properties. She is now a desperate failure, stumbling through life after failing miserably in nursing school. An hour ago, I received an SMS from my cousin Jenna. This is something you must see. I'm so sorry." As part of her continuous effort to establish herself as a social media influencer, she had included a link to her most recent live broadcast. The family got together for Sunday supper while I was out of town attending a real estate conference in Providence, and I had barely checked into my hotel room when the message arrived. Sinead Sullivan is my name. I am 32 years old, and I have been discreetly covering my mother's medical expenses for the last 5 years, following her diagnosis of rheumatoid disease. In order to keep up my real estate company in Boston, I had been working 60-hour weeks, taking care of her insurance paperwork, paying for her prescription drugs, and driving her to appointments. Nobody at the dining table was aware that last year, after her insurance rejected payment for a specialized treatment, I had spent all of my funds. My mother, who seemed to enjoy the attention from my aunts and uncles, went on in the film, "It's such a shame. She had all these lofty aspirations of becoming a nurse, but now she just sells homes to successful people." She chuckled. To my dismay, I could also hear my aunt and uncle laughing with her. Everything was captured via Jenna's camera. I saw that she was shooting from her lap, most likely in an effort to be discreet while capturing her family's daily activities for her social media fans. My mother's statements were all the more upsetting since she was unaware that she was being filmed. "Do you recall her nursing school dropout?" My mom looked at my aunt. She sobbed when she got home since the tests were so difficult. "Horrible. These days, she behaves as though she is selling a property every few months. Contributes to her success." In actuality, I had postponed my nursing studies just to assist her in her time of need. Even though I was earning a respectable living from real estate, every additional dollar I made went towards her medical expenses rather than her education. Suni just lacks the necessary skills. In a theatrical gesture, my mother reached for her wine glass. I had bought the same wine for family gatherings. Real achievement just isn't for everyone. Jenna eventually pulled the camera away after another agonizing minute of the live feed. As the harsh truth set in, I remained still in my hotel room, tears running down my cheeks. I had convinced myself for years that my mother's scathing remarks were simply her way of venting her frustrations or her antiquated method of inspiring others. However, this was not a brief slip-up. This was her real self. There was now indisputable evidence. Once more, my phone buzzed. Jenna texted me again. "I'm so sorry that you had to witness it. It was too late for me to realize what she was saying. Would you like me to remove the video?" For a long time, I gazed at the message. "No." I typed back, "So don't bother. I have something to show you. Tomorrow, when I return." The following morning's trip back from Providence was a haze. I hardly recalled the 2-hour drive home or checking out of the motel. My mother's laughing as she made fun of the job I had developed to support her kept playing in my head. My life had taken a very different turn 5 years prior. I was prospering at the age of 27, halfway through my nursing program. I had always aspired to become a nurse in order to serve others and change the world. Then came the call that made all the difference. Mom had been taken to the hospital after collapsing at work. The diagnosis? Severe rheumatoid arthritis that would need constant care and attention. It's unfair. From her hospital bed, she had sobbed, "How am I going to pay for all of this? Not much is covered by the insurance." I had sworn to aid while holding her hand. "Together, we'll figure it out." "Mom, when I was in high school, my father died, so my mother and I had to rely on one another. I thought our relationship was important, even in spite of her critiques and sometimes harsh remarks. Growing up, she had made sacrifices for me, putting in additional hours and ensuring I had opportunity. It was now my turn to take the initiative. In a matter of months, I decided to put my nursing studies on hold. Real estate offered the possibility of substantial income and flexible work schedules. I could take care of Mom, drive her to appointments, and yet make enough money to pay for our rising costs. It was only meant to be a short-term measure until she stabilized. Only until I had enough saved up to go back to school, but only for a short time. Became years. The therapies had improved Mom's health, but she still required physical therapy, many specialist appointments, and costly drugs. I would take over as her only healthcare manager, devoting hours to researching therapy alternatives and haggling with insurance companies. In her rare moments of gratitude, she would sometimes exclaim, "You've grown so responsible." I have relied on those words to get me through innumerable restless evenings and demanding work weeks. After pulling into my driveway, I sat quietly. I hadn't informed my mother that I would be returning today. I was still in Providence, she believed. At the conference, I had the chance to network with other realtors, but I would have missed it after seeing the video. It buzzed on my phone. Jenna texted, "I'm at the Maple Coffee Shop. May meet at any time you're prepared." I inhaled deeply and made an effort to arrange my ideas. I opened my laptop bag and took out the Mom medical folder. It contained a painstakingly detailed account of all the payments I had made throughout the previous 5 years. All insurance premiums, copays for prescription drugs, and visits to specialists are documented with bank statements and receipts. I never thought these documents would be used as proof of treachery. I had been storing them for tax considerations. After gathering the folder and taking another deep breath to regain my composure, I texted Jenna back, "Arrive in 15 minutes." Despite the crowded coffee shop, I quickly recognized Jenna. Her vivid blue hair and large headphones made her stand out at the age of 16. She wrinkled her face with remorse when she saw me. As I sat down, she exclaimed, "I'm so sorry, Sinead." I was unaware that she would say such things. I was just doing what I always do when I live broadcast. Then Aunt Patricia began about you, and it's not your fault that it became so cruel. I interrupted her digression. In fact, I must express my gratitude. Jenna seemed perplexed. "For what do you thank me?" Putting the medical folder on the table, I opened it to find 5 years' worth of insurance letters, appointment schedules, and payment records that told me the truth. Silently, I said, "I have been covering all of her expenses, including her prescription drugs, medical bills, and insurance payments." As Jenna turned through the papers, her eyes grew wide. "It's thousands of dollars." I verified that it was truly above 100,000. For her, I put my whole life on hold. My finances, my nursing degree, and even my relationships. I believed she needed me, so I put everything on hold. Jenna raised her gaze from the documents. Her face changed from one of surprise to one of rage. "Additionally, she labels you a failure. It's very messed up." I nodded as an eerie serenity descended upon me. I always believed that she was encouraging me with her critiques. Despite everything, she was grateful for what I was doing. I gave a sour laugh. "I guess I was mistaken." "What will you do then?" Jenna inquired. As I talked, my choice solidified, and I reclaimed the folder. "I'm finished. I've already prepared the necessary documentation to delete my name from her accounts." "You won't go up against her?" I gave a head shake. "Why would it matter? She would just say I'm being overly sensitive or deny it." I opened my banking app on my phone after taking it out. In the hopes of ultimately going back to nursing school, I've been setting aside a small amount of money every month. That's precisely what I'm going to do with it now. As I was speaking, I moved the money into my personal savings account that I had set up for my mother's upcoming medical treatments. Even though the action was minor, it seemed enormous. "Whoa," Jenna muttered. "Are you certain?" "I've never been more certain of anything," I said, astonished at how composed my voice sounded. She rejects everything I do that ends today, yet I've been her safety net for 5 years. I showed Jenna my admission letter from the nursing program, which I had almost postponed once again due to my mother's scheduled medical procedures. In the autumn, I began. I told her that I would not be postponing any longer. Jenna grabbed my hand as she reached across the table. In case you require the entire video, I will provide it to you. I could feel the burden of years of commitment easing as we said our goodbyes. I was selecting myself for the first time in a long time. There was none of the remorse I had anticipated. Instead, a feeling of purpose and clarity that had been lacking for too long took its place. When I phoned the insurance company, the agent sounded perplexed. "Do you wish to take your place as Patricia Sullivan's account guarantor? Could you tell me why?" "For private reasons." My voice was unusually steady as I answered. "After this month, I will no longer be liable for any payments." Day 3 of my new resolution was upon me. I had been in a busy tizzy all weekend, composing emails, changing payment details, and phoning insurance providers. As I methodically destroyed the financial web I'd built to assist my mother, papers littered my dining room table. The salesperson went on, "Miss Sullivan, I should let you know that your mother's coverage options may change and her premium would rise significantly if you don't support her." "I get it." I stopped. "Would you kindly provide her home address with an official letter outlining these changes? I want to make sure she knows everything." I was well aware of what I was doing. In a week, the letter would arrive, allowing me to finish the remainder of my preparations before the impending showdown. Since yesterday, my mother's messages have been ringing on my phone. She had anticipated me to take her to a doctor's visit this morning, but she had no idea what I was doing. I hadn't arrived. "You're where?" "It's been an hour since I started waiting." The office of the doctor phoned. "My insurance card was denied," they stated. "As soon as possible, fix it." "Are you not paying attention to me? Pick up your fucking phone." Every communication you sent me made me more determined. I put my phone on quiet and went back to work. I had finished the most of the financial separations by nightfall and had advanced to the following stage. I got my laptop open and started writing a single, well-crafted email that I would send to my whole extended family. Kindly, family. After giving it some thought, I have decided to step down from overseeing my mother's medical treatment and financial assistance. I have paid for all of her medical bills for the last 5 years, which has come to more than $120. Insurance premiums, prescription drug prices, doctor visits, and other therapies have all been included in this. Although I made this decision for personal reasons, I wanted to let everyone know, since my mother could need help in the future. A thorough summary of the assistance I've given throughout the years is attached. If any of you want to assist, I want you to know that I didn't make this choice lightly. Sinead, best regards. I included the spreadsheet I had made, which detailed each payment, appointment, and hour spent overseeing her care. The proof was indisputable. As promised, my cousin Jenna emailed me the whole live stream footage. I saved several copies of it after downloading it. One to a USB drive, one to my PC, and one to my cloud storage. Although I didn't have any definite plans for the video just yet, I had a feeling it could be required. I was startled through the crowds when the doorbell rang. On my doorstep, I noticed my mother, anger twisted at her face. I took a step back. "My heart is pounding. I know you're in there, Sinead. Now open this door." I said nothing as I saw her shadow pass under the door. "3 of my calls have been missed by you. The drugstore refused to refill my prescription. What are you doing?" I inhaled deeply before speaking firmly through the door. "Mom, I'm not doing this any longer. Information from the insurance company will be sent to you shortly. I advise you to thoroughly read it. What are you discussing? This door needs to be opened." "No." On my lips, the one word had a strong feeling. "I've heard your true thoughts about me. We both need to go on with our lives, in my opinion." Before she burst, there was a minute of bewildered stillness. "Is money at stake here?" The irony nearly made me giggle after everything I've done for you. "Farewell. Please don't return, Mom." I moved away from the door as her outcry became louder, going back to my laptop with every step to complete the task. I had begun. I felt as though I was finally getting rid of a weight that I had been carrying for a very long time. Within hours after writing my email, the repercussions quickly materialized. There were so many alerts on my phone. My abandonment surprised and horrified Aunt Maureen. Uncle James believed that I was being nasty and self-centered. Thomas, my cousin, advised that I settle any minor arguments I was having with my mother. Just Jenna. Surprisingly, my old Aunt Bridget also appeared to comprehend. Bridget had a straightforward message. You have to have guts to defend yourself, my love. If you need anything, give me a call. First, I blocked my mom's phone. I then silenced each family member who didn't want to hear my side of the tale one at a time. The quiet that ensued seemed oddly tranquil. I completed my fall semester enrollment 3 days later while sitting in the Boston City Nursing School admissions office. The advisor looked over my file and stated, "Miss Sullivan, you haven't been in the program for a while. However, you have a solid academic history. To find out if you need to attend any refresher courses, you will have to take a placement exam." "I understand," I said with a jolt of enthusiasm. As I crossed campus, I instantly began going over my old textbooks. After that, I had a sense of community that had been absent for years. I was supposed to be following my own goals here, rather than live to satisfy the demands of others. I had already begun preparing, but my real estate business would need to change to fit my academic schedule. I would employ a part-time assistant to help with administrative duties, concentrate on higher value homes, and work with fewer clients. Although the income would be lower, I could still make ends meet without my mother's expenses. A formal-looking envelope was waiting for me in the mail when I got home. It contained an insurance company letter that was mailed to my mother, but ended up at my address. It explained the substantial price hike, as well as the modifications to her coverage. Now that the guarantor was no longer me, I ought to have felt bad. Rather, I felt validated. My phone rang. "Have you seen what's going on in the family group chat, Jenna?" Without introducing herself, she requested. I confessed to leaving all those conversations. "What's happening?" "Your mother is claiming that you've had a mental breakdown. She claims that you're acting out because you've been under stress due to your failing business." Jenna's voice carried the air quotes. "She is totally reversing the course of events." Unsurprised, I sighed. Traditional deflection. "And that's not all," Jenna added. "She persuaded Aunt Maureen to let her move in temporarily while she takes care of her medical condition, and she was unaware that I was still in the chat. She has, of course." Shaking my head, I said, "Mom has always been adept at finding a rescuer." When I got off the phone, I opened my laptop and was looking at the video file that Jenna had emailed me of the live stream that had completely transformed my life. Since that first heartbreaking viewing in my hotel room, I hadn't seen it. I moved my finger over the play button. This recording had strength, the ability to defend myself against my mother's falsehoods, and reveal to everyone who she really was behind closed doors. Did I need that validation, though? Without even asking me for my version of events, the family members were prepared to accept her tale. Was it worth persuading them? I didn't play the video before shutting down the laptop. I had the proof if I needed it, but I had more pressing matters to attend to at the moment. My application for a nursing position was finished. For the first time in years, I was preparing for my future rather than handling someone else's issue as I set the date for my placement exam. On my counter, the insurance letter served as a reminder of the adjustments I had made. After giving it some thought, I mailed a fresh envelope to my mother's real home, put the letter in it, and wrote a little message inside. This was accidentally delivered to my address. "I advise you to thoroughly read it. Just facts, no passion, no signature." Another part of my load was lifted when I put the envelope into the mailbox. She now had to deal with the fallout from her actions, not me. There was a relative quiet for 2 weeks. Between client appointments and real estate showings, I spent every free time studying in order to get ready for nursing school. With every practice test, my confidence increased, and the placement exam was set for Friday. The ambush followed. I saw them in my rearview mirror as I was wrapping up a showing of a 3-bedroom colonial in Brookline. In the parking lot, my mother and Aunt Maureen are standing next to her car. My initial reaction was to drive off, but they had obviously noticed that doing so would simply delay the inevitable. I inhaled deeply before getting out of my automobile. With a sickly sweet voice, my mother murmured, "Sinead, we must speak." I could see the stress on her face up close. She leaned heavily on her cane, a prop she usually reserved for situations where she wished to draw attention to her condition, and her hair was left unstyled. "I have nothing to say," I said, gripping the keys firmly. Aunt Maureen took the lead. "Sinead, your mum is having a hard time. She can no longer schedule visits with her experts, and the cost of her medications has risen. Did you wish for that?" I carefully stated that I wanted to be treated with the utmost respect and gratitude. Acknowledgement for 5 years of struggle was what I want. I desired a mother who did not disparage me behind my back as a desperate failure. My mom's face became white. "What are you discussing?" "Mom, I watched the video. Jenna streaming live from the family meal." I slowly looked into her eyes. "I heard what you had to say about me." Her expression briefly changed from one of recognition to protective rage. "You're misrepresenting the situation. I was only letting off some frustration. That's what everyone does." Aunt Maureen seemed perplexed. "Which video? Patricia? What is she discussing?" The irony almost made me chuckle. In the hopes that I would never find out, my mother had not even mentioned the live feed to her closest friends and family. "If you wish, show her the video," I told my mom. "Or not. Nothing changes as a result. I've already decided." Changing strategies, my mother's voice broke. "Sinead, I am your mother. How can you leave me when I need you the most, after all I've done for you?" I felt something crack within of me. Resentment that had been bottled up for 5 years finally came to the surface. "All that you have done for me," with incredulity, I repeated. "What I have done for you, let me tell you, my whole life was placed on pause. I paid over $100,000 for your treatment. I handled all of your prescriptions, negotiated with insurance companies on your behalf, and transported you to all of your appointments. You called me pitiful in response. You made fun of my career. I created my career just to help you." My speech was calm, despite my trembling palms. I supplied evidence to all members of the family, each and every payment, appointment, and sacrifice. Therefore, don't just stand there and pretend that I'm the bad guy in this tale. Aunt Maureen's face was undoubtedly changing as she looked at my mother. "Patricia," she murmured hesitantly, "what was this video about exactly?" Ignoring her, my mother directed her desperate attention on me. "I apologize if I offended you, but this is a ridiculous response. I'm dealing with severe health issues." "I know," I gently said, "and I've been there for you for 5 years straight. It's another person's turn now." I looked across at Aunt Maureen. "You mean she's now living with you? Has she yet to ask you for money? How many times have you taken her to doctor's appointments?" "You picked up how many prescriptions?" "Aunt Maureen, it was sufficient to remain silent." I had that thought. I turned back to my car and stated that, "I hope the best for you both, but I will no longer be influenced." "It's not over yet." I was called after by my mother. "You can't simply abandon your family." I put my hand on the vehicle door and hesitated. "One thing, Mama, you're correct. While family does not abandon one another, it also does not exploit or denigrate one another. Perhaps you should consider who actually left first." I looked in my rearview mirror as I drove away. Aunt Maureen was obviously being reprimanded by my mother, who was making a lot of gestures. I reasoned that certain things never change. However, I had evolved. I also realized that I was no longer feeling guilty when I went home to finish preparing for my nursing test. I felt free for the first time in years. The last 3 months were filled with a lot of activities. I restructured my real estate firm to fit my new schedule, took my nursing placement exam, and enrolled in the expedited program for students returning to school. An intelligent college student named Kylie was hired as my part-time assistant to manage paperwork and set up showings. When I was in class, the changeover wasn't smooth. Even though there were late evenings, schedule issues, and the odd moment of self-doubt, every little triumph confirmed that I had made the correct decision. I walked into every day with fresh purpose and enthusiasm, and the burden I had been carrying for years had been removed. After our altercation in the parking lot, my family situation had come to an uncomfortable standstill. It seems that my mother had revealed her actual nature to Aunt Maureen, who discreetly contacted me a week later. "I didn't know what you'd been going through." Over coffee, she confessed. "Patricia told me you were selfish and challenging. I ought to have gotten your version of events." I said, "It's okay," and I was surprised at how sincere I was. Mom has always been adept at managing the story. In past years, I had not been very interested in the annual award presentation of the Boston Real Estate Association. I hadn't been able to go to industry events because I was too busy taking care of my mother, but I was moved when my broker nominated me for the Resilience and Real Estate Award, which honors agents who overcome major obstacles to continue operating their businesses. You're guaranteed a spot. During our weekly workplace meeting, my coworker Jeffrey made a strong demand. Since you started nursing school, you have closed more transactions than anyone else in the office. I'm not sure what resilience is if that isn't it. I was excited about the event, an opportunity to celebrate my professional and personal growth, even if I didn't expect to win. On the night of the event, I was in a hotel ballroom with Boston's real estate industry all around me. I donned a dark blue dress that I had purchased especially for the event. I grabbed a glass of champagne from a passing waiter, marking my first non-work-related indulgence in years. I socialized with coworkers and made new connections with contacts in the business who I hadn't seen in a long time. Sullivan yelled out a familiar voice. She needed. I turned and saw one of Boston's most accomplished brokers, Margot Stevens. I hoped you would be here. Regarding your efforts in the Brookline market, I've heard nothing but positive things. We discussed current real estate trends, and I was able to participate in the discussion with ease. It was a pleasant departure from the preoccupied, overburdened person I had become for years. In my handbag, my phone began to vibrate. At first, I disregarded it since I was enjoying the professional moment and was totally focused on it. A minute later, it vibrated once more, so I excused myself and took a quick look at the screen. I got 5 missed calls and a text message from an unknown number. Jenna is here. As soon as possible, use Uncle Patrick's phone for an emergency callback. I felt a knot in my stomach. I answered the phone as I entered a silent hallway. What's going on, Jenna? Jenna's voice was tense as she said, I'm so sorry to bother you. Your mother and I are in the hospital. They believe she may have had a reaction to her new medication when she fell. She's requesting you. I shut my eyes and waited for the recognizable rush of responsibility and guilt to overwhelm me. It arrived, but now it was different. Controllable. Not too much. Is she steady? I inquired. Yes, but they're holding her overnight for observation. I didn't want to call, but Uncle Patrick pushed. I heard muffled conversations, then a shuffling sound as the phone changed hands. Sinead, Patrick here. I understand that things have been challenging, but your mother needs you. The physicians have questions regarding her medical history that we can't answer as we spoke. I watched the ceremony attendants heading inside the main ballroom. The awards presentation would be underway soon. I get it, I stated, making my decision. But I'm at an essential work function right now. After that, I may stop by the hospital. We are discussing your mother here. Patrick's tone became stern. Whatever party you're at can wait, surely. The old Shineade would have given in right away, putting her mother's wants ahead of her own. However, I was no longer that person. I'll arrive in around 2 hours. I spoke aggressively. Tell the physicians, please, and I'll respond to any inquiries then. I also want to thank Patrick for supporting her. I hung up and inhaled deeply before turning to return to the ceremony. In a fancy mirror, I saw my image. Head up, shoulders back, clear eyes. I was acknowledged for the first time in years, and Sinead Sullivan was named the Resilience and Real Estate Award recipient. When my name was called, the entire room erupted in cheers. I sat stunned for an instant. To be honest, I hadn't anticipated winning. Jeffrey pushed me with his elbow and smiled widely as I got up and walked to the stage. I went to the microphone and the crystal trophy felt heavy in my hands. As I looked out at the audience, I saw rivals, mentors, and coworkers coming together to celebrate my efforts. The confirmation was overwhelming. Thank you, I started, speaking more steadily than I actually felt. I can't quite describe how much this means to me. The last several years have been difficult, juggling personal commitments with a busy profession. I doubted my ability to continue on a lot of those days. I stopped and recalled all the many evenings I had spent looking into my mother's therapy possibilities. After restless nights of anxiety, the early mornings are spent hurrying to get ready for showings. However, real estate is more than simply house sales. It has to do with resiliency, adjusting to shifting market conditions, conquering challenges, and coming up with answers when they don't seem conceivable. I was able to overcome my personal obstacles and ultimately return to my initial love, because to the same abilities, nursing. This discovery caused the throng to mutter with curiosity. In addition to continuing to work with my real estate clients, I'm currently working towards a nursing degree, and I am quite happy. Therefore, professional resilience is not the only reason for this honor. It serves as a reminder that we may change who we are at any time. I appreciate this honor. As I made my way back to my seat, I was greeted with warm handshakes and embraces from Jeffrey and our other colleagues. As the ceremony came to an end, a number of individuals came up to inquire about my nursing education, really curious about my unusual work choice. It was almost 9 o'clock by the time I looked at my phone once more. Uncle Patrick had left me 3 more missed calls, and Jenna had texted me, "She is steady. Go slowly." I packed up my belongings, bid farewell, and made my way to my vehicle. I wrapped the prize carefully in my tote bag. I utilized the 20 minutes it took to travel across town to the hospital to mentally get ready for the impending encounter. My mother was sitting up in bed when I got to the hospital room, appearing unusually awake for someone who had reportedly had a terrible medical emergency. Jenna stood clumsily at the window, while Uncle Patrick sat on a visitor's chair next to her. My mother finally exclaimed, in an angry tone, as I walked in, "It's kind of you to accommodate us in your hectic schedule." I placed my tote bag in the trophy box's corner so it would be visible. "Hi, Mother." As soon as my event ended, I arrived. "How do you feel? What do you suppose my emotions are?" I passed out. "I may have perished. You didn't care since you were too busy having fun." Uncle Patrick, obviously uncomfortable, cleared his throat. "According to the doctor, that was probably a side effect of the new drug. She should be well enough to return home tomorrow once the dosage was changed." I nodded while maintaining a neutral look. "It's excellent news. I'm relieved that it wasn't more severe." My mother's expression twisted in annoyance at my composed manner. "If you hadn't left me, this wouldn't have occurred. I have no need for my new insurance. Half of my prescription drugs are beyond my means. Additionally, these new physicians don't have the same understanding of my disease as my experts had. That's unfortunate to hear. Sincerely," I said. "Getting used to new healthcare providers must be challenging." She appeared even more enraged by my cool-headed reaction. "After everything you've done to me, is that all you have to say?" I looked at Jenna, who had a look of humiliation mixed with pity. She nodded subtly in support. "Mom," silently, I said, "you had my backing for 5 years. To ensure you received the greatest treatment possible, I put my life on hold. You branded me a desperate failure after I gave you all I had. You made fun of the profession that funded your medical care. You made fun of my dreams." Uncle Patrick scowled. "What are you discussing?" "You must." Jenna took a step forward. "Uncle Patrick, the video. A few months back, I unintentionally recorded a live webcast while eating supper. Did your mother not inform you about that?" My mom's face became white. "That is totally unimportant. Sinead is taking things out of context in order to defend her self-centered actions." I took the trophy out of my tote bag and placed it on the bedside table. The light struck the crystal. Resilience and real estate signage are prominently displayed in the etching. Sullivan. Tonight, I received an award. I gave Uncle Patrick an explanation of how to run a profitable company in spite of major obstacles. One of those difficulties was providing for Mom's medical and financial needs for 5 years. While behind my back, she disparaged my accomplishments. Uncle Patrick looked from the award to my mother's protective demeanor, and then he understood. "I came here not to dispute," I went on. "I came because I wanted to check on you, and you needed medical information. Mom, I don't wish you any harm. Never have I. I simply couldn't continue to give up my life for someone who didn't value it." There was silence in the room. My mother, for once, had no incisive response, no strategy of manipulation. All set. She only gazed at the trophy, which was obvious evidence of the achievement she had so blatantly disregarded. "I should leave," I said quietly. "Tomorrow I have an early class. Can I drive you home, Jenna?" Uncle Patrick was talking to my mother in a low, inquisitive voice as we were leaving the room. This time, I wouldn't be the one trying to be heard, but the conversation I'd been dreading for months was finally occurring. After 3 months, I stood in my immaculate white suit, steadying my hand while giving my patient an intravenous drip. My nursing teacher saw my technique and gave me a sign of approval. "Well done, Sullivan. Your clinical expertise is developing rapidly." As I fastened the line, I grinned. "Thank you. Everything seems to be coming together at last." I went to my car after finishing my shift at the teaching hospital, stopping to look at my phone. My screen was illuminated by a text from Gina. The professor's interview is going viral. Already 20K views. I shook my head in wonder and chuckled. The Boston Medical Journal interviewed me last week on career changers who choose to become nurses later in life. How my background in real estate had equipped me for the medical field had piqued the interviewer's curiosity. Both professions demand meticulousness, effective communication, and the capacity to support individuals during significant life changes. I clarified, and they both taught me the value of limits, which are essential for all medical professionals. My phone called with an unknown number on the car's Bluetooth while I was driving home. "Greetings, Syniad. This is Patrick." The tone of my uncle's voice was uncertain. "Have you got a moment?" I stiffened a little. "Is everything all right?" "Indeed, it's all right." He hesitated. "I watched your interview. It was quite motivating." "Thank you," I said. The praise surprised me. "Your mother also saw it," he said softly. I waited. "I'm waiting to hear about her most recent grievance or critique." She remained silent. Patrick went on. "But I believe that when she saw you wearing that nurse uniform, it finally hit home. You're actually doing it, becoming a nurse, as you've always desired." I let the vehicle sit in my driveway as I took in what he had said. He filled the pause by saying, "I'm proud of you, Syniad. I also apologize for not realizing what was going on sooner. The mere acknowledgement made me cry uncontrollably." "Patrick, thank you. That is really significant." I took some time to think about how much had changed in less than a year. After we hung up, on my mantle, next to my nursing textbooks, which serve as tangible reminders of my previous accomplishments and future objectives, was the real estate awards trophy. I was still not talking to my mother, but that was all right. I no longer expected approval from someone who couldn't provide it. Rather, I discovered it in my own achievements, in the gratitude I received from patients for my treatment, and in the professional validation that confirmed my decisions. I grinned at the pile of nursing journals on my coffee table as I walked inside my house, my haven. I would study tonight for the test the following week. Maybe give Jenna a call later to catch up. Between courses tomorrow, I had 2 property showings planned. I had a meaningful, fulfilling existence that was all mine. Patrick's phone call came as a surprise favor. Though not essential to my happiness, it's nonetheless appreciated. I was no longer defined by whether or not my mother ever accepted my choice. I had regained my direction, my prospects, and above all, my self-esteem. And when I got comfortable studying, I understood that this was the biggest triumph of all. Hello, I've been considering sharing this, but I feel compelled to do so. To be honest, I'm at a loss for how else to interpret what transpired. Sophie is my name. I've been living at home for a few years since I graduated from high school, and I'm 20 years old. However, I've been locked in this strange relationship with my family for a long time, and I'm simply over it. My 2 younger siblings are Emma, 14, and Jason, 17. Additionally, they have always been pampered as long back as I can recall. From housework to expectations for my future, my parents have always been quite rigorous with me. However, they've allowed Jason and Emma to get away with almost everything for whatever reason. Chores are never required of them. They never face any repercussions. In the meantime, I work a full-time job over here and come home every day to take care of all the housekeeping. Let me briefly outline the typical routine at home. To get to work, I get up early. Then, at night, I return fatigued. However, as soon as I enter the room, I am expected to begin preparing dinner, cleaning the kitchen, doing the laundry, and occasionally even cleaning up whatever mess my siblings may have left behind. In contrast, Jason and Emma spend their time playing on their phones or watching TV. Literally, they are never requested for assistance, and it is enough for me. Last Thursday, things really got out of hand. I had just finished a grueling 9-hour stint at work. My feet ached. I only wanted to lie down for 5 minutes because I hadn't had time to eat. But the distinct scent of leftover food hit me as soon as I entered. I looked around and noticed that Jason's soiled plate, covered in crumbs, was positioned directly in the center of the coffee table. Now, Jason has a habit of leaving his trash everywhere, plates, wrappers, whatever. I go crazy about it. But since I didn't want to create another argument, I've just become accustomed to it by now. However, I was unable to accomplish it this time. In an attempt to relax, I passed the plate, but then I heard my mother coming from the kitchen. "Sophie, could you please come in and tidy the table?" Once more, Jason dropped his plate. She yelled. I was already seething within my brain. Why is it me every time? Why do I have to do the cleanup after everyone else? However, I made an effort to remain composed and entered the kitchen. I've spent the entire day at work, Mom. I'm worn out. For once, Jason is able to tidy up after himself. I didn't even bother to disguise how frustrated I was. It wasn't warmly received by her. You're the oldest, Sophie. You ought to lead by example. Simply tidy it up. You're behaving as like it's really important. I was shocked to hear that. I'm not a maid, Mom. Jason and Emma get away with it while I do all the housework. Why are they unable to assist for once? Mom looked at me like that one in which she becomes protective. You're going overboard. This is not something we have time for. Please just clean things up. My blood began to heat up. It's not just the platter here. You have been mistreating me for years. I'm working and cleaning all the time. Additionally, you never ask Emma or Jason for help. I'm finished. Mom, I'm tired of having to do everything by myself. Her expression stiffened. Simply put, you're being overly sensitive. Sophie, you are now 20 years old. You've grown up. You can assist without grumbling now that you're old enough. My heart was pounding. I am an adult, so why am I still confined to this place, taking care of everything while you pamper them? I pointed to Emma and Jason, who were both seated in the living room and completely unaware of what was going on. You're behaving as like this is really important, Mom yelled once again. Instead of whining, you should be thankful that you are living here for free. What's wrong with you? For me, that was the tipping moment. All at once, I felt tired, frustrated, and aware that I was not making progress with them. I'm finished, I stated before giving it my full attention. I'm leaving. Mom's eyes widened as she froze. What? You're not serious. Even so, where will you go? I'll work it out. Taking my car keys from the counter, I said. I have months' worth of savings. This is no longer necessary for me. Even though my pulse was pounding, I felt liberated at that very moment. I couldn't go back, but my mom yelled after me, yelling something about how I didn't have to do this. I couldn't subject myself to this any longer. I refused to remain and continue to be treated as like I didn't exist. I was relieved when I got into my car after slamming the door behind me. I didn't care that I didn't yet know where I would stay. I simply knew I couldn't spend any more time in that house. I don't believe I've ever had such an odd fusion of exhilaration and terror in my life. It was a peaceful drive. To get my mind straight, I drove about aimlessly for a while. I knew I couldn't return home, but I wasn't sure where I would remain. I sat in my car for a time after parking at a nearby cafe. I came across a few rental room advertisements while browsing through my phone, and after a few phone calls, I finally located a location that seemed respectable. A little flat with just one bedroom in a peaceful area of the city. I could afford the rent for the time being, but it was more than I wanted to spend. It was worth it to be away from my family, to not have to deal with their continual criticism, or to clean up after them. The next day, I signed the lease, and before the end of the week, I had packed my belongings and left the house. I brought my job equipment, some simple furnishings, my clothes, and a few mementos. Knowing that I wouldn't be returning was an odd feeling. No more being told I was too sensitive or doing arbitrary duties. The most liberating days were the first few. It has been a while since I felt. I remained where I was, adjusting to the silence. There was no one to tell me what I should or shouldn't do, so I was free to come and go as I wanted. I did not have to cook if I did not want to, and I cooked when I felt like it. Even though it was a tiny space, it was mine, and that was plenty. Things began to calm down as the days passed. After I established a regular work schedule, went to the gym, and watched some Netflix in the evenings, I began to feel more like myself. Though, to be honest, I was beginning to see how poisonous my family dynamic had been. I still maintained contact with a few pals. I no longer had to bear the burden of all their troubles. It was amazing how free it seemed. However, the call began around a week after I moved out on my own. My mother left me a single voicemail at first. Her voice was worried, but not in the kind that comes from genuinely caring about my well-being. It was just normal. No, this was not the same sort of worry. Sophie, you must return home for us. The house is in disarray. Nobody is performing any of the duties, and you left your belongings all over the place. Jason and Emma don't even know how to clean up after themselves, and your dad has been whining. Just return for a short while, please. Things are getting out of control. We truly need your assistance. As I listened to the message, a small amount of rage began to rise. Assist. Previously, they had not been interested in my assistance. They had never inquired about my needs or desires, but all of a sudden, they wanted me back while I wasn't doing the duties. I didn't return her call. Jason texted me the next day. It got right to the point. "Sophie, you must come home and assist," Mom adds. "The house is collapsing. Do you no longer give a damn about us?" I spent some time looking at the screen. I put down my phone and shook my head, trying to stop myself from responding with something sarcastic. They didn't even inquire about my well-being. All they desired was a maid. The texts continued over the following few days without my response. My folks, then Jason, and even Emma began contacting each other in some way. Voicemails, calls, and texts. Nevertheless, it was all the same. They urged me to return and finish the job. Their need for their mother was growing. "Just return and assist with cleaning the kitchen, Sophie. We're going wild for Mama Sophie because of it. It's been a while since we last saw you. You are missed. Additionally, when you get the opportunity, could you wash your laundry?" From Jason. "Sophie. Really? What's wrong with you?" "You're just being selfish," Mom remarked. "Just lend us a hand for a while." I couldn't decide which irritated me more. The fact that they continued to behave as though they missed me, or that they were still blind to the reality that I was more than simply their maid. They only cared about how much work I was doing for them. Despite everything I had given and done for them, they showed no concern for me. What I desired didn't matter to them. Only the duties were involved. I lost my temper one evening when my folks left me another voicemail. My phone broke while I was at home, finally getting some sleep after a hard workday. I was unable to resist. I returned my mother's call. "Mom," I began in a forceful yet calm voice. "I'm not returning. Cleaning up after everyone is no longer my responsibility. I'm not your maid." The person on the other end of the queue paused. "What are you discussing?" Her tone was defensive as she spoke. "You're behaving absurdly. Your dad is going crazy, and the house is a complete mess. The only one who could take action is you. No, the only one who ever takes action is myself. After years of doing everything, I'm done. You and Dad need to start teaching your children responsibility and real parenting if you want the house to be clean. I will no longer be tidying up after them." "All right," she yelled. "So you don't give a damn about the family?" I gave a quick breath. "No, Mother. I now take care of myself. And you can't use guilt tripping to get me to come back and do everything for you. I'm finished." She yelled at me to quit being selfish as the call came to an end. I experienced a feeling of closure, even though it hurt. I would never return to that. The following week flew by, filled with work, exercise, and, for the first time in a long time, peaceful evenings spent by myself in my flat. I was able to breathe. I didn't have to return home to an incessant to-do list, guilt trips, and expectations. Naturally, though, my parents cautioned against letting me go so lightly. My dad, Sophie, had left me a message on my phone on a Thursday night. "This is becoming unmanageable. We have been responsible for cleaning the entire house ourselves. If you don't come home and assist us, we won't be able to continue managing." I rolled my eyes as I gazed at the writing. It was a more straightforward version of the same old speech. They were becoming frantic, and I could sense the tension rising. I nearly ignored it, but I couldn't help myself. Something has to be said. So, trying to be as calm as possible, I answered, "Dad, I'm not going back. I will no longer be tidying up after all of you. I have no obligation to maintain order in the house." Hours passed with no response. And a part of me believed that perhaps they were beginning to understand at last. Perhaps they were starting to see that I would no longer be their doormat. However, my phone buzzed once again as I was about to unwind, this time indicating that Jason had called. Even though their messages were already annoying me, I picked it up, assuming I would simply quickly shut it off. "Hey," Jason said, with a tone of calmness that I didn't like. "Why do you take this so personally? It's more than simply the duties, you know? Mom and Dad are having a lot of trouble, and you're just tossing it all away when they need support." Before the debate had even started, I was already worn out and rubbed my temples. "I'm not discarding anything, Jason. I'm tired of being treated as though I'm the only person capable of doing anything. Both of us are old enough to begin taking care of our own affairs. You should have learnt it from your parents. However you could assist," he continued, obviously growing irritated. "You may simply return for a short while, till the situation subsided. You're not really accomplishing anything significant over there anyhow. That final sentence struck a chord. I have a job. Jason. In fact, I'm making progress in my life. I'm not going to wait around for someone else to look after me. But you spend your entire day playing video games and scattering the dishes. You expect me to pick you up after that? He chuckled, as if I had said something amusing. Well, none of us have a job, do we? Just because you work a little, you act like you're a huge deal. Mom and Dad already have enough stress from your behavior. I was finished. What do you know? I'm done discussing this. You can continue to play these games with your parents. However, I am no longer your scapegoat. I'm not returning. My heart pounding, I hung up before he could utter another word. However, my phone buzzed once again as soon as I put it down. It came from my mother this time. I nearly hesitated to open it, but my curiosity won out. Sophie, we must speak. You must return home. The house is in total disarray as your father has a breakdown. It's not fair of you. Just return for a little while and assist us, please. I experienced a sudden outburst of rage, a collapse. To myself, I mumbled. For years, they have been the ones who have been breaking me down. Despite the fact that I didn't answer her, I could feel their expectations and demands pressing down on me. I detested it. I made the decision to wander around the streets that evening in order to decompress. I reflected on the treatment I had received from my parents, who treated me like an underpaid maid. The way they allowed my brothers get away with murder while believing I should be thankful for the crumbs of affection. They gave my way. It was unfair. And now I was suffering because I had defended myself. After returning to my flat, something has changed, I thought. Cleaning the house was no longer the only concern. It has to do with my independence. My family has always expected me to submit to their wishes and put their convenience ahead of my own satisfaction. However, I had done enough. I was no longer going to feel bad because of them. The call resumed a few days later. There was more than one SMS or voicemail this time. It was unrelenting. 5 consecutive messages, each more desperate than the last, were left by my mom when she phoned. We absolutely need you to return, Sophie. This is becoming unmanageable. It's too much for your dad to bear alone. Emma and Jason refuse to take any action. The only one who can assist is you. And then another one a few hours later. Sophie, please. I beseech you. Return. We'll put things right. Just return for a time. You don't have to accomplish everything. We are in dire straits. This can only be fixed by you. You could hear the anguish in her voice. However, I could also detect a hint of tampering. It has nothing to do with me. The goal was to organize the house. Regarding bringing me back to complete the tasks they declined to complete themselves, I let the messages to accumulate. Each one served as a reminder of everything that I had done for them and all that I had given up for their comfort. They were now attempting to shame me into taking on the same role. I wasn't going back, though. Jason called again shortly after. Really? Are you just going to disregard us in this manner? Because you're too obstinate to assist, you're allowing the home to collapse. It's pitiful. The call was sent to voicemail by me. I was finished. Despite my best efforts to ignore them, I could feel their presence hovering over me. I sensed them tugging at the corners of my determination. There was increasing pressure to go back and correct everything. However, I couldn't allow them to tear me down once more. I was free, and I had no intention of returning, not until they realized the damage they had caused to me. After my mom's last urgent texts, a few days went by. I had no desire to return. I was aware of that. However, something continued to bother me. There was an unsettled aspect of me that desired resolution, that wished to put a definitive stop to it. So I made up my mind at last. I was returning. However, it wasn't about making things right for them this time. I wanted to be obvious that I was finished. I grabbed my keys, put on pants and an old hoodie, and drove back to my folks' house. My heart started pounding as soon as I got into the driveway. Everything seemed different today, even if the home was familiar. This was no longer home as it had once been. It was a battleground. I inhaled deeply before approaching the door. Without waiting for an answer, I pushed it open after knocking once. From the other side of the door, I could already hear my dad speaking to Jason and Emma in the kitchen. The fragrance was the first thing I noticed as I entered. Like a location you would only want to be in if you had no other option. The house had a stale stench. I entered the kitchen without making any effort to be polite. My parents' cheeks lighted up with surprise and relief as soon as I stepped in. Sophie, you've returned. Mom came running over, looking almost radiant. "I believed I had come to save them," Dad remarked finally, and rose from the table. "We have been anticipating your arrival. This situation has truly gone out of hand." Jason and Emma were so engrossed in whatever was happening in their own little universes that they hardly looked up from their phones. For a moment, I watched their faces, thinking that I would just revert to the character I had been playing for years, the one who fixed everything and put everything right. Instead, I inhaled deeply and exhaled gradually. "I'm not here to save you, sorry." My voice was firm, but it was heavy with the burden I had been bearing for so long. You could see the bewilderment on their expressions. My mother stepped back, blinking as if she was having trouble understanding what I was saying. "What are you saying, sweetheart? You've returned. You are sorely needed." "No, Mother. I'll clean up after you, please. You won't clean up your mess on your own, therefore you need me to do it for you. I'm finished after years of doing it." They went cold, and I noticed a difference in their eyes for the first time. My dad started to say something, but I stopped him. "I'm tired of holding things together while you all relax and let me handle it," I went on. "I don't want to be the one who has to constantly make repairs so you can act as though nothing is wrong." I pivoted and surveyed the kitchen. The dirty dishes were heaped on the counter. The floor was covered with spills and crumbs. The wash basin was piled high with dirty pots and pans, and the rubbish was piled high. It was a complete disaster, a catastrophe. "Take a look at this." I pointed to the kitchen as I said, "You've been requesting that I return to this. Do you want me to clean this up?" "Mom, take a step back. Sophie, we've been quite busy. We are aware that your dad has been ill. Give up apologizing. I'm not coming back to clean this. This is about all of you taking advantage of me for years without ever considering that perhaps you ought to accept part of the blame. Emma and Jason are old enough to handle household tasks on their own. Whether they're still in school doesn't matter to me. The parents are you. Instead of letting me handle everything, you ought to be instructing them." I could see the fracture in my dad's normally guarded posture, but his face was flushed crimson with rage. He said, "We never asked you to do all this for us. You decided to provide a hand. You weren't forced to do it. I had a moment of irritation, but I controlled myself. The point isn't that. I've done what you expected me to do, Dad." I turned to face my siblings, who remained engrossed on their phones. "You two also don't get a pass." With a stern voice, I added, "I will not return to serve as your maid. It's time for you to start contributing. This entire situation, in which I cook, clean, and take care of everything while you all relax, must cease." Jason gave an eye roll. "Whoa, dramatic. A lot? For once, could you please assist us?" "Dramatic. I'm finished." I interrupted him. I said, "For years, I've been doing this, yet nobody has ever appreciated it. Not once. I go back to my folks. I'm done, which is why I came here today. I'm not returning. Every time you make a mistake, I won't be the one to pick up the pieces. You have to work this out for yourself." They stared at me as they stood there in amazement. I could see the thoughts racing through my mother's mind as her lip trembled. However, it was too late. I wasn't going to change my mind about what I had decided. "I'm going." I turned to face the door and stated that. "I wish you luck." I heard my mother yelling my name as I left the home. "Don't go, Sophie, please. This is something we can resolve." However, I didn't look back. I didn't turn around as I continued to go, letting the door close behind me. I climbed into my vehicle and drove off. With a sense of relief I hadn't had in a long time, my chest felt heavy. I had regained control. There will be no more cleanup after them. No more feeling compelled to solve their issues. For me, it was time to live. I had a sense of closure as I drove off. I was certain that I had made the proper decision. Being cruel wasn't the point. The goal was to take charge of my life and stop allowing them to deplete me. How do you all feel? Do you think I should have done this sooner? Or did I make the proper decision to prioritize myself? Tell me what you think.